Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramf, here to usher you into the weekend. It is January 31st. It is the last Friday in January. So let's kick things off. The city looks to annex 2 properties out of the 3,300 Rancer Drive, the industrial region of North Side. On the other side of the Missoula Cemetery is expressed an interest in the Urban Renewal District monies to update the former particle board manufacturer to more commercial, residential type area. Another area off of South 3rd Street West, which is way over off Reserve Street, which is also looking to get annexed within the city of Missoula. But we're going to jump back and we're going to talk about the Racer Drive, which is hundreds of acres, and Dave DeGrandpre with WGM Developer talks about the future of the North Side sites.
It says any development should be driven by an updated North Reserve Scott Street master plan, and that master plan is intended to be updated by the Missoula Redevelopment Agency this year. Here's a snip from the 2016 North Reserve Scott Street master plan, where that star is located toward the center. That's the Roseburg property. It was called out as an industrial reserve at that time, so it wasn't within the city limits, of course, and so wasn't really planned quite so closely, but you can see it's a central and important, probably integral part of this North Reserve Scott Street area, has lots of potential to help meet the city's goals, and so it's called out specifically for further considerations.
All right, so there's definitely a lot of stuff that's going on. And this happens to be, just a little bit of background is that ever since Montana Railink sold to Burlington Northern Santa Fe, there's been a lot of property assets being sold and traded and just bequeathed to the city in some way or some process. And the process continues as the North Side is looking to expand their development in Missoula. However, even David is concerned about building and zoning regulations what it might have on the industrial site in the future. And this is what he had to say. Here's Dave.
This is a bit of a leap of faith, frankly, because this proposal doesn't come with a specific development plan that has been evaluated in great detail, but we know that planning is forthcoming, assuming annexation occurs. But what we need to do is make sure that there are street and utility easements in place, that there is a more detailed planning process that comes up to assess sewer, water, stormwater, streets, trails, etc., and that there's a funding mechanism in place. And in this case, that's condition number 3, that there's a special improvement district waiver of the right to protest for infrastructure improvements. And then number 4, that there's a retracement survey done so that we know exactly where the pipelines are, exactly where the existing easements are, and the other encumbrances. And finally, due to the Yellowstone pipeline, that there's a no-build zone that's placed along that site.
Okay. So special improvement districts were used essentially to have the area in question pay for their own stuff through taxes. And because this is a formal industrial site, a lot of the places aren't necessarily residential, so property taxes and those people there wouldn't necessarily have to pay that, but it will be a special improvement district, which in turn would essentially cost money to the future owners of that particular site. So unlike TIF, which uses Urban Renewal District monies to help leverage some blight and use taxes collected by commercial properties, they're using this as a way to create an SID beforehand so they don't have to worry about having this whole protest and asking residents if they want to have the SID, which most people don't want to have an SID, especially in this time and era. But this is new property being annexed, and the city of Missoula is really happy about moving forward on this. And MRA, Missoula Redevelopment Agency, is taking many of the adoption of developments of the site moving forward. These are 2 pieces of litigations that could impact those impact fees. And Ellen Buchanan from MRA director talks about those legislative items.
There is some pending legislation in Helena right now that would make it extremely difficult for the city to make a decision to either expand an urban renewal district boundary or create any new urban renewal districts. It basically removes the incentives that cities and counties would have to create districts and use tax increment as a tool. We're watching that very closely. There are 2 bills. One is specifically aimed at TIF, and we're not going to know for a while which of these, if either of them, is approved in the legislature. I think it's safe to say that Senate Bill 2 would literally be the death knell for tax increment financing use in the state of Montana.
All right, so there's something to think about moving forward, as a lot of the misconception when it came to TIF funding in general was the fact that people thought it was taking money from the people, when in fact it was taking money from people who had commercial interests in certain areas of Missoula. So there was interesting kind of clashing between the city of Missoula and the Chamber of Commerce because, you know, people want to keep making money and that's just the way it is. Ellen is worried about those streams of revenue which have used urban renewal dollars to support good development in Missoula rather than pull from special improvement districts, very much like what they did with the Hillview Way, the big road that they improved on that particular side of things as a means to pay for it, and they also dealt with the litigation at that particular time. But for the property owners, they only own lots. They didn't actually own any developed land, and so they didn't have to pay the taxes on those special improvement districts unless they decided to develop on those sites, which is currently happening. So there's a lot of history, a lot of weird things going on with that. And overall, this would be a 203 acre of land to be annexed into Missoula, and the stake of future housing and growing the tax base for the city one way or another. As we dive into the as we dive into the consent agenda, we have a couple dissent of the future of Higgins Avenue as the state aims to have 3 lanes instead of the current 4 lanes. So Bob Campbell is not so sure about the Higgins corridor and a lot of the new construction that they're proposed on doing in the downtown area.
The fact of the improvements, the Higgins Avenue multimodal plan, which is the 3 lanes I just mentioned, as well as the reversion of Front Street and Main Street to the 2-way restoration each way. Also, that garnered quite a bit of apprehension from the business community. And, you know, with those things baked into the plan, I appreciate that there is a working group out there. I don't think it's well represented by the business community at large downtown. I believe without a thriving economic footprint and viable business community downtown, there's nothing to safely access or mobilize to. So, you know, as I've said for quite some time now, I feel it's council responsibility. Certainly I feel it's my responsibility to make sure that we do no harm to the business community at large.
All right, and so that was Bob Campbell's take on that particular item during the meeting. And part of the justification of this way was the fact that engineers noticed traffic didn't really change while the bridge was under construction when we only had those 2 lanes while they were rebuilding. However, with Front and Main changing, many challenges will face the regular commuters. Front and Main Street are considered double threats where you have 2 lanes going in one direction and then the other streets going in one direction too. They want to have it going either direction at all times so they can improve that particular area. Not to mention they want to improve the hip strip, essentially Bear Track Bridge to Hellgate High School, to do those 2 lanes with the middle turning lane, which at that particular time I thought that was probably one of the better ideas going into the Bear Track Bridge. So essentially, there's just a lot going on here. And honestly, when they did the single lanes on 5th and 6th Street, I know everyone was apprehensive about it, but then it turned out to be one of the best decisions that they made. So, but we got used to them and prefer them over what the city engineers call the double threat. So that's just one of the things that they're thinking about when they're thinking about the future of downtown Missoula with those millions of dollars of grants. And Bob Campbell is a city council member who's just concerned that we're just throwing a lot of money at an issue that isn't necessarily an issue. But as we go further, we also have Gwen Jones, who spoke against Daniel Carlino's a proposal to increase the neighborhood grants funds from $20,000 to $35,000 a year, and this is what she had to say in response to this.
I'm just very uncomfortable expanding our budget when we're probably heading into budget cuts this summer. So I'd much rather have this discussion within the context of our budget. When we are looking at cutting boards and commissions and trying to narrow those down and recoup some costs there, it's hard for me to be voting yes on something that expands our budget, especially when staff stated that depending on the project, they could work with the neighborhoods to get some of these projects done, so we didn't really need to expand this budget.
Yep. So it was a very much a why bother approach, and part of the argument behind this is that they wanted to apply this to the budget moving forward. This wasn't necessarily hard fought in committee last time, but overall many of the council members felt more emboldened to help support this expansion, which the item passed 8-4. Speaking of, legislative news, one of the things is that, the budget's going to be shrinking. There's a lot of concern about how they're dealing with the property tax issue, and property taxes are one of the few mechanisms that local communities like Missoula County, Bozeman, Billings, and all those places help supplement some of their income and help run the city as overall, and also have improvements to the city as they see fit. So, Jessica Miller, a Missoula lobbyist and legislative liaison, talks a little bit more about some of the bills that the city of Missoula is supporting.
So one bill that we supported was Senate Bill 1, which creates new definitions of blight for our redevelopment agencies. That one passed out of the Senate unanimously and will now be going to the House. I just kind of wanted to highlight that one because the Montana League of Cities and Towns and our staff, everybody was able to really kind of work with the sponsor on this and come out with a great bill that everybody was able to support.
All right. And so, there's definitely a lot of bills that are coming out. House Bill 274, which was related to Medicaid and for homeless people in regards to behavioral health, which Missoula supports. HB 310 grants programs to increase community shelter programs, which could be the future of what Johnson Street Shelter will be coming out of 2026 when these laws take into effect. That is one pending and still not in committee. With every bill support, there's an equal, if not more, pressing matter when it comes to bills they should be lobbying against, and Jessica Miller talks about some of the ones that the city of Missoula is lobbying against.
Senate Bill 146 is the Private Property Protection Act, and that one basically removes all our zoning abilities except things that are directly public health and safety. So that one's challenging, and we are opposing that along with the Montana League of Cities and Towns and others across the state. Senate Bill 96, I think I mentioned the first week, that's the Working Animal Protection Act, which again would, we have a ban on like circus animals and exotic animals in town, and that particular bill would override that ordinance that we have. And that one did actually pass out of the Senate, or out of committee, and is moving to the floor. So that one's still moving forward. And then finally, Senate Bills 117 and Senate Bill 2. Those are the two I just wanted to mention that Mr. DeGrampre and Ms. Buchanan spoke of earlier this evening as far as how we treat newly taxable property. And so both of those have had hearings, but they have not had a committee vote yet.
All right. So there's definitely a lot of going on in the legislature thus far. The animal one, which was one of the House bills, was looking to, reflect the idea that animals to perform, which the county of Missoula voted in an ordinance to ban that within Missoula, which essentially would be the circus. We had a hard fight with the Shriners a couple years back from using animals for entertainment, unless it's for educational purposes, and through years of exploitive labor forces that the animals and many animal rights activists rallied against. HB 121 is another bill opposed by the city of Missoula on the trans issue, as it focused on birthright gender bathroom privileges. This is more or less a national narrative that has infected the state and local levels that would be required to facilitate those old school notions. As we move forward to the general city council meetings, we also dive a little bit into committee meetings, which was roughly about 10 minutes per meeting. With budget and finance, they meet to dive in the first quarter of 2025 for adjustments on the budget. They didn't really talk too much about this. They just explained how the budget technically worked and how they wanted to address revenue and additional funding depending upon what they got this particular year to reflect the budget. They do these quarterly updates, pretty common. Public Works, they talked about some storm cleanup. They have a services with terra firma. The initial contract would be paid rate of to not exceed $800,000 and be completed in 90 days. The contractor is paid based on the unit rate of cubic yards of ground material that is trucked out. And as of January 8th, they completed grinding all materials at the north side lot and has caught up to all the materials brought in the Garden City compost. There's still a large pile of debris at Large March Triangle to finish, and there will be continued to be additional material coming out of the remainder of the parks contract. So they're having a slight extension and increase of the budget. So they talked about that. They got further approved for the consent agenda. 44 Ranch Phase 16 and 17 is up again as they round up the Mullen Build project off England and Georgia Elmer as they begin further development. And Laura Stevens talks about those particular developments.
And was discussed earlier this month at LUP. We covered the recommended amendments to the findings of fact and conditions of approval for the subdivision as part of the phasing plan amendment. As a reminder, the big changes included dedicating the full right-of-way of Shindig Drive and its street connections prior to the final plat filing of Phase 16 or the end of 2025. Replacing the language of condition of approval number 20 to address the findings of the updated basement study, updating condition of approval number 33 about stormwater items from 2018, and 2 new conditions of approval regarding the lowest adjacent grades on development lots in relation to stormwater ponding elevations. There were 2 items brought up for discussion in a memo from the applicant's representatives at the last meeting, which staff met with WGM Group to discuss and find resolutions to. The first item was the requested phasing plan amendment deadlines that exceed the current 20-year deadline that is in city subdivision regulations. And the second was a proposed new condition of approval addressing connectivity and emergency access between phases 15 and 16.
All right, so there's just a lot of typical, like planning, updating, and everything like that. Not to mention, this is just getting a plan approved by the city to reflect the law's changes in the current code reform, which some of those were grandfathered in from the 2017 proposals. Not to mention that they want to plan ahead for many of the laws that could slow things down on plans and proposals to reflect those potential changes all the way through 2030. So other than that, we won't dig too much deeper into this particular meeting because most of them are about 10 minutes long. And we're going to throw it up some messages for you guys before we come back and talk about some movies.
Buds, fighting the evil Skellymen.
You never steal our Bubble Hill, Skellyman. I will take over the Bubble Hills. Go, Robots!
MCAT Animation Drop-In Workshops every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. located in the Missoula Public Library, 455 East Main Street.
I'll get you next time, Robots. Next time! Go, Robots!
All right, welcome back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. It's time for Pre-Critic, where I prejudge a movie based on absolutely nothing but my biases towards movies in general. We have Companion. Hey, you like the Megan movie? Now let's take up old sex spot with a robot girlfriend who malfunctions and kills everyone. Enjoy the type of thrill that puts the humans and as the antagonists in this one. I'm pretty sure that's usually how it is. Watch as they subject the robot girl to all sorts of things until she takes her power back and lights up these humans. That seems to be the theme as these stories seem to be told from this perspective in the trailer. Unless Deus Ex Machina, this movie will probably have your typical cast of should be dead, but has a sad backstory, so therefore they live. Also, the whole sex robot, bad. Not their personality, but their actions. All right, up next we have Dogman. If you liked the immature nature of Captain Underpants or I'm Dating Myself, Teacher's Pet, enjoy the anamorphic, silent, but deadly cop who can't stop the equally confusing cat guy in a Dogman movie. So, a movie that is pretty much for kids with childhood street jokes that parents get enough to chuckle before falling asleep before the mid-act climax towards the end. Hey, I watched Captain Underpants. That movie got boring towards the end, and though it had an interesting start, it just got pretty tired towards the end. And that's the thing about kid jokes is that when they find something funny, they repeat the joke 20, 30 times before it becomes less funny. All right. Here are some of the movies that are coming out. I'm going to go speed right through them. Valiant One, rom-com girly stars in a military special ops unit where they send out actors to a 2-week boot camp and never question if they actually finished. Mostly it's about U.S. soldiers on the wrong side of North Korea trying to escape by using their wits and skills. Behind enemy lines. We have Round of Decay. You got a girl who's visiting back in her small town reunion, but all sorts of monsters and stuff will have to fight monsters, and some of the music from Final Cut Pro in the trailer. Trust me, I listen to trailers like, wait, that's music that you have in Final Cut Pro. But regardless, this is more or less a high school reunion, but with monster movie charm. Then we got Lake George. Looks like The Purge, but mostly like it's some kind of robbery or break in the results of a bad guy hold up the victims in a thriller about a rich parents and their no good son in jail being threatened with death unless he pays the price while in prison. I'm assuming he could sell cigarettes, maybe? I don't know. All right, and then finally we got Love Me, which is a sci-fi movie, even though it's like pandered, looks exactly like it's just a romance between two people, but I guess the only chance that Stephen Ewan and Kristen Stewart would actually have a romance if they were the last humans on Earth. So that's essentially what it is. Not if you were the last man on Earth, and technically is. And that's the kind of movies that are coming out this weekend. Kind of forgettable, honestly. And here is yet another monster movie I did, and I did The Wolfman the other week, and now I'm going to do The Invisible Man from the 1933 film of the same name. Doop-a-doop-a-doo, reading a book. Who's that now? Wait a minute, that doesn't sound like me. Interesting. What's going on? Wait a minute. Those aren't my usual sounds in my house. Who is there? Hello? That's weird. Hello? I'm over here. What? Yes, you heard me right. Yes. I'm over here. I know you can hear me. I'm looking right at you. Ghost? Yeah. Let me just sit down real quick. Right here. You might be thinking to yourself, heck, I might be invisible. Or perhaps maybe you ignored people so much that you just don't even notice somebody sitting right in front of you. Here, let me put this log on the fire. It's getting kind of nippy in here, just because, my clothes aren't invisible, which is very awkward. Don't ask me about food. Or I might have to get a little bit physical. Yes, please, sit down. So, I got some questions for you. First and foremost, this is my house, and I guess the bank sold the house to you because there was nobody here. No. Excuse me? No? Ha! Come on now. This is ridiculous. So I defaulted on a couple bills here and there, and the bank foreclosed. Heck, I showed up for work. Nobody noticed me. For obvious reasons, of course. You're not a ghost? You're kidding, right? At this point, you should know that I'm an actual person. You just can't see me, nor can anyone really else see me. Maybe I'll make it a little bit easier on you. Or maybe I'll just leave and not really leave and live here the whole time. You'll never see me. You'll never hear from me. I'm leaving. Bye-bye. Oh, jeez. Oh, I hope he's gone. Where is he? Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, thanks for the gloves. You can see me strangling you with these gloves. Come on over. Boo-ba-doo-boo. La-la-la-la-la. La-la-la-la-la. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I'm changing over here. I'm sorry. Thought that you could use my car and drive away? I hope it isn't one of those fuel-efficient cars. You know what? It doesn't really matter. As long as it's yours, I'll gladly take it. Eminent domain, baby. Eminent domain. Squatter's rights. You can't tell me what to do. All right, we're back. Let's talk about some events that are happening in and around the city of Missoula as we jump right into things. So if you're interested in getting some nutritious meals and if you're looking at to break the bank, Missoula Food Bank meal distribution opens at 10 a.m. This is a usual thing that it is a good resource for a lot of people who are struggling economically to get it. It's off of Wyoming Street, right next to the West Side Lanes and Fun Center. Family fun time at Mismo Gymnastics. If you want to stay warm and indoors and keep your kids active, that's a great place to do it. Tiny Tales here at the Missoula Public Library to get kids exposure to reading. They usually have an arts and craft event here in the Art Box on the second floor at the Missoula Public Library. Preschool playtime at Roots Acro Sports Center. That's at 10:45 a.m. to this morning. It's a great way for kids to stay indoors and also stay active. Lunch at the Missoula Senior Center. This is at the Missoula Senior Center. They do this daily, Monday through Friday. It's a great way for people to get together, have lunch at the Missoula Senior Center. By far, arguably, the best dance floor in Missoula. Also, the Poverello Center does breakfast, lunch, and dinner daily, including the weekends, for people who have access to food issues. And the Missoula Food Bank is only going to be open until about 1 p.m. today. Tuesdays and Thursdays is a long day, but Monday, Wednesday, Fridays is their short days. So keep a track of that. Watercolor and yarns, as always, here at the Missoula Public Library, 12 noon every Friday at noon on the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library. There's always something for you to do. All Abilities Art Club. This is for Americans with disabilities. ADA accessibility for people to be able to do some art, and this is at Base. Downtown Dine Locals Week is happening now until February 2nd. They have specials. Get your taste buds ready. Downtown Dine Local Week comes from burgers to brunch, steaks to soups, tacos to teriyaki, coffee to cocktails. Downtown Missoula restaurants have it all. Dine and take it out. No matter how you dine, Missoula eats, treats, and drinks. Follow along with social media for your chance to win prizes. You could eat, the more chances to win. And so essentially this is a good opportunity for a lot of people here in the downtown partnership where they have gift cards for people to be able to use them. So there's a lot of great opportunities with that. Lego Club, Missoula Public Library, second floor, 2:30 in the afternoon. 3:30, Carousel for Missoula. If you want your kids to ride a carousel, there's a buy one, get one free deal from their happy hour at the carousel, 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Young Adult Writers Group here at the Missoula Public Library. You're a young writer, want some cultivation, some constructive criticism, Missoula Public Library is the place to be every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Teddy Bear Sleepover. This is one of the library's favorite events. Bring your fluffy best friend to the library for a fun teddy bear craft and a family first learning lab exhibit. If you want, you leave your friend overnight and pick them up over the next morning. They might get a shower, might get a good wash on them. And then from 9 to 11 on Saturday, they're going to have ice cream for breakfast in the library. Speaking of Friday night, Glacier Ice Rink is hosting Fire on Ice Hockey fundraiser. It's a 50-50 raffle with a silent auction. Chuck a Puck. And it's free admissions, 2 games starting at 6 p.m. And then we got Dungeons and Dragons for adults online through the Missoula Public Library at 6 p.m. tonight. Pack the House, benefit for Montana Pets at 6 p.m. at the Wilma Theater. Night Blooming Jasmine is going to be at the Old Post playing some jazz music at 7 p.m. Folk is going to be at Imagination Brewing Company starting at 7 p.m. starring Dave Westfall. Tom Catmull is going to be playing music at Cranky Sam Public House at 7:30 p.m. tonight. Monks are going to wrap up your night Place is Called Home, playing some rock music at 8 p.m. starting time. So Saturday, as always, has the winter markets and such from 9 to 1 p.m. Orchard Homes will probably be starting theirs pretty soon. Sometime they usually start it in either mid-February or early March. I'll let you guys know more about that as we go along, but the Saturday winter markets in the Southgate Mall next to Shields from 9 to 1 p.m. Getting to know your digital camera at 8:30 a.m. at the Lifelong Learning Center. Lifelong Learning Center has many different classes where you can get certification or just pick up a new skill. Also, a great entry into the GED program. 8:30 tomorrow morning, they're doing their digital camera lesson. Tax assistance, Gallagher Business Building. So for people who are making $60,000 or less, can get tax assistance from the VITA program, offers free tax house with low to moderate incomes. Certified volunteers of the University of Montana receive training to help prepare basic tax returns in the community. Use the program by appointment only. So the Teddy Bear Sleepover will wrap up here in the Missoula Public Library, and you can pick up your furry friends at 9 a.m. Curious Creatures, Beetlemania is going to be featured at the Butterfly House at 10 a.m. tomorrow at Saturday. The regular hours are open at 10 a.m. most days. Admitted Student Day. Call on students who have been admitted to the University of Montana for fall of 2025. As you're making your college decision, it's important to be able to answer the question, do I see myself fitting in there? At Admitted Student Day, you'll have the opportunity to start building your own community here at the explore all the resources and opportunities available to you, experiences campus life, and getting answers to all your questions. All right, so that's happening at the University Center ballroom on the 3rd floor at 10 a.m. Saturday, mind you. So we're on Saturday, and as we continue, University of Montana is doing their Community Forestry Day at Schreiber Gym. Interested in learning about forestry and natural resources industries in Western Montana? Want to explore student-constructed logging town inside the 106th Foresters Ball? There's all sorts of fun happening there. February 1st, 2025. Entry and parking are free. The event is open to the public. This is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Line dancing at Missoula Senior Center Saturday at 10 a.m. Story time at Missoula Public Library at 10:30 a.m. Winter story time at 11, which is going to be featuring the favorite at Winter Storytelling. Sneed Collard graduated with honors in marine biology from the University of California in Berkeley and earned a master's in scientific instrumentation from UC Santa Barbara to research and write his nonfiction book. He traveled to Australia, Costa Rica, Southeast Asia, South America, and deep sea floor. He is an entertaining award-winning speaker and has visited more than 600 schools and has been invited to the Travelers Rest State Park. Admission is $5 per person. Lunar New Year is at Missoula Public Library starting at 11 a.m. It's the Year of the Snake with special Lunar New Year celebration hosted by Here Missoula and Montessori Plus International. This free, family-friendly event will feature paper lantern making, origami, traditional dance performances. The celebration will be held Saturday, February 1st at the Missoula Public Library on the 4th floor Cooper Room from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And during those times, Missoula MCAT is hosting our Saturday drop-ins for kids who want to do stop animation, fun activities from 1 to 3 p.m. Busting Genial, did the government change your ancestors' name at Ellis Island? The census really held for 72 years due to privacy concerns. Learn about several common and completely false genealogically myths starting at 2 p.m. at the Missoula Public Library. Family concert, Sherlock Holmes and the Missing Maestra. Family concert, Sherlock Holmes is going to be at the University of Montana for a fun-filled family adventure with Sherlock Holmes and the Missing Maestra. With the Maestra gone missing just before the big concert, it's up to the world's greatest detective Sherlock Holmes to solve the mystery. Join Holmes as he investigates each of the instrument families, from the strings to the woodwinds to the brass and percussion, to find out who is behind the musical caper. Snow Glow fundraiser for Housing Humans Incorporated. Cymatic Event Center. Snow Glow is an annual event promoting awareness and support for housing humans, creating a joyful winter atmosphere while raising funds to help members of the community currently experiencing homelessness. And this is at 5 p.m. at the Cymatic Event Center. Winter's Ball, the Scurfs and Apocalypse Stick is going to be at Free Cycles playing some rock music at 7 p.m. on Saturday night, mind you. Three Dog Mike and Friends, good music at Imagination Brewing Company. Say Gay Plays, University of Montana, the Montana Repertory Theater, and Western Montana LGBTQ Center in partnership with Room 331 Productions, Rudy Theater, will Say Gay Plays, an evening queer theater to benefit the center on Saturday, February 1st, 7:30 p.m. Saturday night in the PAR TV building. Say Gay Plays in Missoula features stage readings from several LGBTQ-themed plays. Emo Night at the Wilma is at 8 p.m. Saturday night. Missoula Folklore Society is doing at the Elks Lodge Ballroom at 8 p.m. on Saturday. Karaoke at Westside Lanes. Disney Drake Show at the Zootown Arts Community Center. Starlink Reunion and the Blackwood Beats presents Night 3 at Monk's, playing some DJ music at 9 p.m. And then Chris Moon is going to wrap up your Saturday with some jazz and brunch at Finn and Porter on Sunday, starting at 11:30 a.m. The Bible in Context, Reframing Genesis and John, the Mansfield Library. This is your grandma's church group or Sunday school. This is gathering dives into the stories of Genesis and the Gospel of John, exploring his historical, psychological dimensions from ancient mythologies like the Babylonian and New Elish to the Greco-Roman influence in John, and the touch of philosophy will uncover the profound narratives that shaped these texts. Garden City Salsa, Rocky Mountain Ballet Theater at 1 p.m., Odd Pitch Pinball Tournament at 4 p.m., Draftworks Winter Jazz Series at 6 p.m. on Sunday. Hell's Bells at the Wilma, playing some rock music, very funny open mic comedy. VFW, and karaoke at the Sunrise Saloon to wrap up your Sunday. So that's about that. I'm going to breeze through some of the news items. As AI technologies have become open source and much cheaper thanks to the future Chinese overlords that created that AI assistant outside the ChatGPT known as DeepSeek, and the financial implications of DeepSeek are nearly $593 billion lost by various companies, and potential blowing up any future investments, including President Trump's $500 billion promise to the tech bros, who don't really have a stock that was once reliable. Essentially reports that this AI is essentially a Chinese Sputnik, but unlike the $1 billion Stargate announcement, this open source AI was made with $6 million in 2 months. The work smarter, not harder approach beat the potential money-making scheme that could have cost someone, since there was no way the U.S. government would and will support $500 billion for something that was just made for that cheap. And, speaking of China dunking on us even further, solar panels and wind farms are popping up like crazy in China. The nation put up 357 gigawatts of solar and wind, a 45% and 18% increase, respectively, over what is operating at the end of 2023, according to Chinese National Energy Administration. This is akin to building 375 full-size nuclear plants in 1 year. The President, Xi Jinping, wanted this done by 2030 and has exceeded the 1,200 gigawatts worth of power generating energy. So, mind you, many solar panels that are bought and traded in the U.S. are Chinese made, and having this edge on the green energy has put China years, if not decades, ahead of the United States. And regardless of how you feel, drilling takes energy, transporting those materials takes energy, and heck, even making solar panels takes energy that all contribute to carbon emissions. However, unlike drill baby drill policies that the fading boomer administration seems to be latching onto this time around, lack of renewable resources are going to make the U.S. look like a third world nation if China keeps beating us at a game that we cannot agree on most of the time. You don't have to lose coal or minerals when using solar. It takes a little bit of light. However, many would have you believe that coal and natural gas in the winter-centric states like Montana have been proven, but by not letting these renewables prove themselves by undermining them, we risk falling behind many advancements made by the uniparty that is the CCP. Since we are talking about the abbreviations, the chronic wasting disease, CWD, is a big deal in hunters and Montana fish, wildlife, and parks alike. Chronic wasting disease was caught in the Flathead area as hunters on Friday. The Confederate Salish and Kootenai tribes reported that a mule deer shot in the northern portion of the reservation has tested positive for the disease. Since 2017, there have been reports in Wyoming and eastern parts of Montana, and this is the first time in western Montana where the deer has tested positive. If you know anything about mad cows and mad cow disease, it's essentially zombies. This is a brain rot that is worse than any kind of animal slowly dying and leaves an infected corpse for the prions to settle in the soil for future infections. Excuse me. Since Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks started sampling hunters' animals for chronic wasting disease in 2017, the disease has been detected in clusters in the southeast, especially along the Beartooth Mountain front, high lying east of the Rocky Mountain front, and around Libby and Dillon. Excuse me, geez. Take precautions and send samples to Fish, Wildlife, and Park because they just have as much stake for hunting in Montana than the rest of the state. They're asking tribal leaders for help harvesting deer, but warn that any animals test positive for chronic wasting disease should not be consumed. There have been no known transmission of CWD to people, however, that could change if prions mutate. Good news for the... excuse me. And of course, as we have more and more people coming to the state of Montana, the airport, the Missoula International Airport, continues to have record-breaking years as the pandemic is far behind us, with that 1 million passenger in 2024 to put a bow on the travel season. The Missoula International Airport is already on track to expand its reach, with Alaska Airlines adding a second daily flight to Portland in May, along with a fourth daily flight to Seattle. It will also resume weekly services to San Diego in June. American Airlines will also double its services to Dallas/Fort Worth in Chicago and restore services to Los Angeles. Morning trips to Chicago will be added. Delta Airlines' second daily flight to Minneapolis, Allegiant, will also resume twice weekly services to Orange County and Oakland. For weeks, flights to Las Vegas Flights to Las Vegas will double from 2 to 4 weekly flights. Among the growth and use, the new East Concourse project will bring a number of new jet gates along with an expanded baggage claim and car rentals. And as we get further into more state laws, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Senate Bill 146, which is the private property rights. So it gives a lot more property rights to the private owner, but it also takes away some of the laws that the state and people can do to help regulate some areas that would need some essential cleanups, and being fairly vague on some of those things. And so getting some arguments in the legislature, proponents of the bill say local governments are exerting too much power over private property with regulations that deal with issues like yard size, rental use, occupancy, or open space. But opponents argue that the benefit of local control, because governments have more intimate knowledge of the community. This also harkens back to, you have the flood plan, fire danger, and various other elements that the city can use to tap into FEMA in case of a disaster. But unfortunately, when you have some places that are kind of outside the communities, they're taking private property rights to a more libertarian mindset. They are more on their way without advantages of community support as a result. This, also harkens back to the reason why many of these property rights laws were put into place, protecting people and sometimes protecting them from liability on the property gives the rights of the owner to receive help from the county and the state for assistance. Many believe that SB 142 is just another attempt to bring mining to Montana, and worse, unchecked by the part of crucial Montana constitutional amendment of a clean and livable climate. Part of that history goes back to a junkyard lawsuit that happened. There was a junkyard in a private property next to a river. They tested pollutants and was able to get that cleaned up and for the safety of the folks down the river. So most of these lawsuits would take up time and have over the years that reflect on not having a clean and livable climate as a result of many places having pollutants. So you literally have to look up any DEQ Montana cases, and there's one or two every single year that's still pending. It's kind of ridiculous how many of these things are consistently ongoing in the state of Montana. So yeah, I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to have a fairly short show, and I want to hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will take off. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. Take care.